the bus driver who found his second family. Ben Porter was just an ordinary bus driver, but when a little girl's laughter vanished from his morning route, his quiet life took a turn he never expected. What he discovered would change more lives than his own. The question remains, what would you do? Ben Porter's life had always been steady, even predictable. Growing up in a blue-collar neighborhood in Nashville with 6 siblings, he'd never wanted for much, nor did he need it. The warmth and energy of a busy household gave him all the entertainment he needed, and the clothes his older brothers passed down gave him more comfort than anything he'd find in a store. He did well in classes, played football, and took a job at the factory the summer after high school. He often thought back to the day he met Alice, on a crisp autumn afternoon in senior year, as the defining moment of his life. She was running a booth for the cheerleading team, selling homemade apple pies, and her warmth was magnetic. When she teased him for lingering without buying, he laughed, saying, "I was waiting for the best pie." With a wink, she replied, "You've got good timing, the best one just came out of the oven." That moment had marked the start of their love story, one filled with simple joys. Walks in the park, dancing in the kitchen to old records, and evenings spent talking until the stars faded. Alice had a way of making the ordinary extraordinary. Every holiday was special with her. She insisted on cutting snowflakes for the windows at Christmas and baking pies for neighbors on Thanksgiving. Her dirt-smudged hands from tending flowers and playful scolding over stolen cookies became cherished memories. She'd leave little notes in Ben's lunchbox, reminding him to smile or sharing a joke that kept him chuckling through his shift. Alice had encouraged Ben to take the factory job, knowing it would provide the stability they needed to build their life together. For years, he worked long hours at the assembly line, his days marked by the rhythmic hum of machines and the camaraderie of his co-workers. The factory had a dependable rhythm: early morning shifts, the hiss of steam, and birthday celebrations with vending machine cupcakes. But while the job gave them the security to save for their little house and plan their future, Ben spent most of his days watching the clock, counting the hours until he could go home to Alice. Together, they dreamed of retiring to a cabin in the mountains, sketched lovingly in Alice's notebook filled with ideas and wildflower lists. When Alice was diagnosed with a sudden illness, their world changed overnight. The hospital room, with its sterile smell and harsh fluorescent lights, became their second home. Ben spent hours reading aloud to her from her favorite books, holding her hand, and trying to make her laugh with old jokes. But there were moments, terrible, quiet moments, when he could see the weariness in her eyes, when her laughter was softer, her voice weaker. He clung to hope with every ounce of strength he had, but slowly her light faded away, and one night, she was gone. The emptiness of his house and the absence of her laughter turned his once familiar routine into a daily reminder of his loss. Without Alice, the quiet was deafening. Her notebook, with its carefully drawn plans, still sat untouched on their kitchen table, a painful reminder of a dream deferred. They never had time for children of their own, and Ben yearned for the human connection he had lost. His brothers and sisters had long since moved away, and the spaces between their calls and visits grew longer and longer. He couldn't bear to stay in the factory, surrounded by the ache of memories and the hollowness of his shifts. That's when Ben decided to trade the factory floor for the open road and became a school bus driver. From the start, he made an impression. He had an uncanny ability to bring a smile to any child's face, no matter how shy or withdrawn. On the bus, he created a world of fun and laughter. He had a playlist of the kids' favorite songs, ranging from sing-along classics to silly tunes that made even the grumpiest passengers giggle. He kept a stash of stickers and little prizes for good days, and he loved coming up with creative games for the long rides. Once, when the bus hit a traffic jam, he heaved himself out from his seat, pulled out a harmonica from his pocket, and played a lively tune while stomping up and down the aisle. The kids howled with laughter, and the frustration turned into a dance party. There was something special about the bus. It wasn't just transportation, it was a place where the children felt safe to be themselves. Each child brought something unique to the ride, and in their own way. They reminded Ben of life's little joys. Max, who always carried a book too big for his little hands, reminded Ben of Alice's love for reading. Max would sit at the edge of his seat, utterly engrossed in his book, even as the other kids sang or joked around. Ben often wondered what kind of world Max was escaping to, and felt a quiet pride in knowing the bus gave him the peace and space to do so. Then there was shy Lucas, who barely spoke but watched the world outside through the fogged-up windows. Lucas reminded Ben of himself as a boy, quiet, observant, and often misunderstood. Ben made it a point to nod to Lucas in the rearview mirror or ask about what he saw outside. Over time, Lucas started pointing things out, like a bird nesting in a tree or the way the light danced on the road after the rain. Ben treasured those rare glimpses into Lucas's inner world. He had a knack for seeing the beauty in little things that others missed. Sarah, on the other hand, was pure energy. She loved to lead sing-alongs, often getting the words hilariously wrong, which made the other kids burst into giggles. She had a contagious joy about her, one that Ben couldn't help but admire. Sarah's off-key renditions reminded him of Alice's playful scolding about his singing. Sometimes, when Sarah was particularly confident, Ben would join in with his deep, soulful baritone, much to the delight of the other kids. Liam was the newest addition to the route. He was timid at first, always choosing a seat in the back and staring out the window. He reminded Ben of the quiet determination it took to start over in his own life. One day, Ben asked Liam to help him choose the morning playlist. Liam hesitated, but eventually nodded. By the end of the week, he was humming along with the others, a small but victorious smile on his face. Ben saw a little of himself in that small triumph, a cautious step toward connection. Even the grumpy neighbor who always complained about the bus noise shaking his fist and muttering about the racket became part of the fun. The kids loved exaggerating their waves as they passed his house, giggling as he scowled. One day, Ben surprised the kids by unfurling a giant sheet he'd painted the night before. On it was a cartoon of the neighbor himself, complete with a scowling red face and steam coming out of his ears. The kids erupted into laughter, and Ben pulled over so everyone could help him attach it to the side of the bus. Before they drove past, when the neighbor came out to see what the commotion was, he couldn't help but chuckle. The playful jab melted some of his grumpiness, and soon he was waving good-naturedly at the bus as it passed each morning. Everything changed when Emily, a bright and bubbly child who always had a joke to share, suddenly stopped showing up. Emily was a spark of life on the bus, her giggles infectious and her humor never failing to brighten even the gloomiest mornings. She had a knack for finding the perfect moment to crack a joke, often leaving the other kids and even Ben laughing so hard they had to catch their breath. Emily was the one who had once dared Ben to tell a joke, teasing, "Come on, Mr. Porter, let's see what you've got." He had risen to the challenge, delivering an old, corny punchline that made the kids groan, but left Emily clapping her hands in delight. Ben cherished Emily's warmth because it reminded him of Alice's playful side. Emily had a way of making people feel seen, just like Alice used to, and her absence hit him harder than he expected. The bus rides felt quieter, the energy subdued. The usual joy that radiated through the space seemed dimmed without her chatter and her daily joke of the day. At first, Ben tried not to worry too much. Kids get sick, he told himself. But as the days turned into weeks, her absence became impossible to ignore. He asked the other kids if they had seen her, but their answers were vague. "She's just sick." One said, "Her mom's been sad," another whispered. Ben's concern deepened as he replayed her last day on the bus in his mind. She'd been quieter than usual, her jokes less enthusiastic, but he hadn't thought much of it at the time. Now, he regretted not asking her if something was wrong. Each day without Emily's laughter felt heavier, and the sense of something being amiss gnawed at him. That night, Ben tossed and turned in bed, unable to shake the worry. Was it really his place to intervene? He wasn't a teacher or a family member, just the bus driver. Normally, Alice would have known exactly what to do. She always had a way of seeing through to the heart of people, knowing when they needed a kind word or a listening ear. Without her, Ben felt adrift, further from her wisdom and warmth than ever before. He stared at the ceiling, wondering what Alice would have said. "What if I say the wrong thing?" he whispered to the empty room. "What if showing up makes things worse?" Yet, the thought of Emily's cheerful face weighed heavily on his mind. He pictured her sitting in her usual seat, turning to him with a grin as she shared another corny pun or a silly knock-knock joke. He thought about how she had once told him he was her favoriteest driver ever, and how her words had stayed with him, warming a part of his heart he thought had gone cold after Alice. By the time the first light of morning crept through his window, Ben had made up his mind. He couldn't let fear stop him. Emily had brought so much joy to his days. The least he could do was make sure she was okay. He resolved to check on her, no matter what. After his afternoon route, Ben drove to Emily's house. He rehearsed what he would say as he parked his car in front of the modest home, its overgrown hedges adding to his sense of unease. When he knocked on the door, a tired-looking woman answered. Her eyes were red, and her shoulders sagged under an invisible weight. "Hi, I'm Ben Porter," he said gently. "I drive the school bus. Emily hasn't been riding lately, and I just wanted to check in. She's missed by everyone on the bus." Mrs. Taylor's face softened, a faint smile breaking through her exhaustion. "Oh, Mr. Porter, Emily talks about you all the time. She's been having a tough time. My husband passed away last month, and we're both adjusting." Ben's heart ached. "I'm so sorry for your loss," he said. "If it's all right, could I say hello to Emily, just for a moment?" Mrs. Taylor nodded, stepping aside. Emily was curled up on the couch, clutching a worn stuffed animal. Her usual spark was gone, replaced by a sadness that seemed far too heavy for her small frame. Ben knelt down to her level. "Hey, Emily," Ben said softly. "The bus isn't the same without your jokes. Everyone misses you, even me." Emily looked up, her eyes brimming with tears. "I miss Dad," she whispered. "He used to help me with my jokes." Ben nodded, his own grief stirring. "I miss someone too," he said. "My wife, Alice. She was my best friend." Emily's eyes widened. "You miss someone too?" she asked, her voice small. "I do," he said. "Losing her felt like losing part of myself. But talking about her, even just little memories, makes me feel close to her again. Maybe talking about your dad would help you feel close to him too." Emily hesitated, but a faint smile tugged at her lips. "Like when Dad burned pancakes and said they were extra crispy?" Ben chuckled. "Exactly like that. Alice used to say my singing was so bad it scared the birds away, but she always sang along anyway." Emily giggled. "Dad once wore mismatched socks to work and told everyone it was a new fashion trend." The two continued sharing stories, the room filling with warmth as they swapped memories. Mrs. Taylor, standing quietly in the doorway, smiled to herself as she listened to Emily's giggles. For the first time in weeks, the room felt lighter. Emily's walls were beginning to come down. When it was time for Emily to return to the bus, she was nervous, but Ben reassured her with a kind smile. "It's your space, Emily. Sit close to me if it makes you feel better." On her first day back, she chose the seat right behind him, gripping her stuffed animal tightly. The other kids greeted her warmly, but Emily stayed quiet, her usual jokes absent. As the bus rolled down the familiar route, Ben glanced in the mirror and decided to share another story about Alice. "Did I ever tell you my wife used to sneeze so loud she woke up the dog?" he said with a grin. Emily giggled softly, and the sound made Ben's heart swell. "Can you tell me more about her?" Emily asked hesitantly. Ben smiled, his voice soft as he answered. "She loved flowers and had this habit of sneaking one into my lunchbox. She said it was to brighten my day, but I think it was her way of reminding me she was thinking of me." Emily nodded thoughtfully. "My dad used to tell me the worst knock-knock jokes, but he'd laugh so hard at his own punchlines that we couldn't help laughing too. I'd heard most of them before, but they made him so happy." Their conversation grew warmer, and soon the other kids, overhearing bits and pieces, began to chime in. "My grandma hides cookies in her knitting basket to eat when the nurses aren't looking," one said. "My dad told me he wanted to be a magician, but he forgot the trick halfway through and said, 'Ta-da, anyway.'" Ben glanced back at Emily, whose face was lit up with the kind of smile he hadn't seen in weeks. "See," Ben said, looking around at them as he stopped at a red light. "These stories remind us of the people we love. They live on in our memories, and those memories bring us joy." The kids nodded, their voices rising as they began sharing more. and the bus felt more connected than ever. It wasn't just a ride to school anymore, it was a space where they could share, laugh, and support one another. Word of Ben's compassion spread through the school community. Parents began greeting him warmly at pickup times, some even bringing him coffee or baked goods. One afternoon, a single dad approached him, looking hesitant but hopeful. "My son, Ethan, has been having a tough time making friends. I don't know how to help him." Ben smiled gently. "Put him on the bus. I'll make sure he's okay." True to his word, Ben took Ethan under his wing. Over the next few weeks, he found small ways to help him feel included, from introducing him to Max, to starting bus-wide trivia games that encouraged even the quietest kids to participate. Ethan began to open up, laughing along with the others and finding his place in the bus family. The culmination of these small acts came on a sunny Saturday. Ben's bus was parked in front of the school in its usual spot, where a surprise gathering was forming. Families and children filled the lot, holding signs that read, "Thank you, Mr. Porter, and you're part of our family, Mrs." Taylor called Ben on his cell phone and told him he better come down to the school. As Ben stepped out of his car, Emily ran up and handed him a large card. Inside were notes from every child and parent, expressing their gratitude. "There's more," Mrs. Taylor said, stepping forward. "The school and the community chipped in to repaint your bus. We thought it should be as special as you are." Ben turned to see the bus, now adorned with bright colors and murals painted by the children. Flowers, stars, and smiling faces covered every inch, making it unmissable. Hidden among the decorations were nods to the stories they had shared. A cartoon bird holding its ears, a grandma in a rocking chair wearing a Santa hat, stacks of burnt pancakes labeled extra crispy, a magician's hat with stars and a bunny spilling out, and even a huge book drawn in Max's honor. But it wasn't just the decorations that left Ben speechless. Standing near the bus was a school administrator who had heard about Ben's impact. "Mr. Porter," she said, "your care for the kids has inspired us. We'd like to start a mentorship program for students who need extra support. You'd be the perfect person to lead it." "What would I do?" Ben asked, his voice thick with emotion. "Well, once you dropped the kids off, you'd walk inside with them to your new office. You'd help identify children who might be struggling and offer them guidance," she explained. "You could host group activities, mentor them individually, and use your incredible knack for bringing people together." Ben's throat tightened as he thought about how Alice had always told him he had a way with people. "I'd be honored," he said, his voice trembling. Tears welled in Ben's eyes as he addressed the crowd. "I thought I was just driving a bus," he said, his voice cracking. "But you've all given me so much more. I've found a family." From that day on, Ben's bus wasn't just a vehicle, it was a haven of laughter, support, and connection. The mural became a symbol of their shared memories, and the mentorship program allowed Ben to help even more children find their way. In the hearts of everyone he touched, Ben Porter was far more than a driver. He was family. Ben Porter's journey teaches us that life is rarely about the grand plans we make, but the small, meaningful connections we forge along the way. Through his love for Alice, he learned how to embrace life's simple joys. Through his grief, he discovered the strength to start anew. And through the laughter of children, he found a purpose he never expected. In the end, Ben's story reminds us of a simple truth. Even in our darkest moments, there's light to be found in the kindness we share and the bonds we build. His school bus wasn't just a vehicle, it was a home for hope, joy, and second chances.